And joining us now is someone who has been campaigning for Kamala Harris in a number of battleground states, Maryland's Democratic Governor, Wes Moore. Really good to have you, sir. Let's talk about that op-ed you wrote for BET and the Harris agenda, what it offers for black men. What is your argument here?
The argument is this is the first time that we have seen in U.S. presidential history that a nominee of a major party has actually put together an economic agenda exclusively focused on black men. This is incredibly important because, you know, as black men who have come up, we understand that the history of this country has been remarkably uneven. And oftentimes it meant that black men have been left behind. And so to hear the vice president talk about things like what we're going to do to support the entrepreneurial dreams, after the military, my background is I was in the military. I was also a small business owner. I understand that first tranche of capital, that first capital you get, that friends and family round, well, not everyone has the same friends and not everybody has the same family. So oftentimes you had a lot of entrepreneurs of color who then aren't able to get the capital they need. The vice president is addressing that. The vice president is addressing things like how are we going to have a recreational cannabis market, because cannabis has been used as a cudgel around so many communities, particularly black communities, and she's basically saying that we not only need to have a national legalization of the cannabis market, but we need to create more pathways for people who have been most directly impacted to then be able to enter into the market. She's putting together specific policy details, and that's the reason why I think you've seen not just this continued interest, but I think you're going to see black men really stepping up and coming into supporting the vice president to become the next president of the United States.
Governor, the pushback we've heard on that as black men who say that they're going to vote for Donald Trump is that they don't feel that was their lived experience. Their lived experience was that they were doing better under Trump. They thought they had more opportunities for better jobs under Trump, even more than a few who have suggested that they feel some sort of kinship with Donald Trump and his legal problems. What do you say to them? They feel like they have had a real life under Trump, and Kamala Harris is just making promises.
I feel that for many people who believe that Kamala Harris's policy positions that she's pulling together are not feeding into what they're hoping for. The answer I would say to many of them is what Donald Trump is not feeding and has not put together a single policy idea that's going to benefit the community. The truth is that Donald Trump is very good at pointing out the problems and actually picking at the skepticism that a lot of people have. And it's not a skepticism towards the vice president. It's a skepticism towards the pace of progress in America. It's a skepticism about the fact that we still have a racial wealth gap inside of this country. It's a skepticism that you still have a difference between the unemployment rate and the unemployment rate for black men. So that's the frustration that people are talking about. But the thing I would tell them is Donald Trump is very good at identifying the problem. But Donald Trump is not good at identifying an answer to it. So he has become a very good vessel for the skepticism, but he is not a vehicle for the solution. The vice president is the only candidate who's actually putting together detailed plans to focus on pathways to work, wages, and wealth, and giving black men the opportunity to be able to pass something off to their children besides debt. This is the angle. These are the policy ideas about training and about apprenticeship programs and about home ownership and in supporting entrepreneurs. These are the things that are going to actually make a marked difference in not just the life, but the legacy that we're hoping to leave for our children.
Let's talk about gender writ broadly, though. Is there certainly has historically been, and is there against her case for election, which will rely heavily on women, and the fact that there are more women voters in the United States than men, is that running into headwinds because there are a lot of men who just simply, black and white, men who just simply don't trust a woman to be, chief executive, commander-in-chief. They just don't want to vote for a woman.
I think it's really important for all men in our society, and to your point, men of all backgrounds, colors, creeds, family lineages, to remember who it is that we're fighting for, and in many cases that we are fighting for our families, for our both sons and daughters, for our partners, for our parents, for our cousins, our aunts. And I know I think about this where, you know, that we take the role of having a leadership role in our family very seriously. You know, I oftentimes talk about how I look back at Ephesians and how Ephesians talks about how men hold this place as a spiritual head of household. But what that means is being able to be a protector for everyone in your household. It means supporting everyone in your household. And it means protecting their interests and frankly, their lives. And so if you have a person who's putting together policies that is attacking the health care of my daughter or my wife or my sisters, then that is my responsibility to serve as an anchor and a protector. If you have somebody who is making derogatory comments about this person who's running for president of the United States, comments like where he said that Kamala Harris was born mentally impaired, that's not offensive just to Kamala Harris. That's offensive to our daughters and to our sisters and to our spouse. And so I do think it's important for all men to understand in this moment, as we are thinking about what becomes our role and how do we think about what does our vote mean, that we're not just voting for ourselves. We're voting for every member of our family. And that is why I am very clear that my vote will go towards Kamala Harris, and my support and what I will do to make sure that everybody does the same is because I believe in the protection of everyone in my family and not just some people in my family.
Let's talk about, Governor, the other race that's in your state, a big key Senate race, open Senate seat between your Republican predecessor, former Governor Larry Hogan, and Angela Also Brooks. Could make history, by the way, as Maryland's first African-American senator if she wins. What is your sense of this race?
You know, I endorsed Angela Also Brooks over a year ago, even during the crowded primary. And even when it was advised, they say, you know, sitting governors stay out of open primaries, because I knew that not only was she the partner that I wanted to work with, but I knew that she was the leader that was prepared to meet this moment. And I think that Angela is going to win overwhelmingly tonight, because I think she's not just captured the imagination of the people of our state, that we are a future-facing state. We don't go backwards. But the thing we also know is that on the policy issues, she is where the people of Maryland are, that she has been a lifelong defender of reproductive health and reproductive rights that the old governor is not, and has had a very interesting political revolution and evolution over the past 6 months. That she's a person who has a history of actually promoting public safety and doing what it takes to make our communities safe. When you watched homicide rates and non-fatal shooting rates explode under the old governor, and when he's when he's saying that he wants people to split their votes between Kamala Harris and him, the truth is, when asked about who he's going to vote for, he said that he did not fill it out for the president. So running for Senate, you can't just basically vote present and call yourself a political maverick. There's political courage that's required in these seats for people to make tough decisions and take tough votes, but knowing that you're always doing it in the best interest of the people of our state. And I think that Angela Also Brooks is a person who the state trusts. Angela Also Brooks is a person who the state will vote for, and Angela Also Brooks will be Maryland's next senator.